In this lecture, we are going to have a look at the concept of picking. Now, picking in SAP is quite simple, but in this video, we are going to have a look at the picking process itself, some of the concepts surrounding the picking process, and how SAP does the picking. In short, or in the simplest way, picking can be defined as the activity in which a small number of goods are taken from the warehouse and placed in another location, usually called a picking or packing station. And it is a physical movement of material. In a more complex term of picking, or in SAP, is the activity of collecting materials from its current storage location and place them in a pre-designed area, as we said before, usually known as a packing area. In the simplest form, in SAP, a picking activity is updating the picking field in this SAP delivery document. So the field picking, you just update the quantity. In the more complex form, the picking can be done by creating a transfer order. We can create an individual transfer order per material, or we can consolidate all of the picking into one transfer order. Before we continue on talking about the various different types of picking and so forth, when a consultant approaches the picking process, it's important to differentiate between what physically happens and what you want to model in SAP. What I mean by this is it could be that the picking process physically is quite complex. You go to different bins, you pick lots of things, you have the users do quite a lot of complex things, but it could be that in SAP you just want a simple picking because all of the complexity is done somewhere else. A good example of this is that if you have your own warehouse system that is outside of SAP, you can then say, okay, in SAP we do a very simple picking process. You just say update the picking quantity, and then you let the external system handle all the complexities. So SAP simple, external system more difficult. Or it could be that you want SAP to model all of your picking processes to handle your whole warehouse. In that case, the picking process will be more complex, and most probably you would use some degree of warehouse management, for example. There are actually lots of different ways in order to do the picking. The first type of picking is actually something called the pick to part, in which a picker will be given a list of all the materials that they need to pick, usually for one delivery, and they would go through all of the bins, picking all the materials for that one delivery. A refinement of that is to zone picking, in which one picker is given part of the delivery and they will only pick all the materials that are in their zone. So one picker would pick for that particular delivery for zone A, and then another picker would pick for the same delivery materials that only are stored in zone 2. And they would all bring it to one location, a packing station, and that delivery again will be consolidated. You then have wave picking, in which the picker is given orders from lots and lots of deliveries but are consolidated. So for example, a picker would go to bin A and pick, let's say, 3 of material A, and that is maybe for 2 deliveries. So rather than pick for one delivery at a time, he actually picks 3 or 4 deliveries per bin. Next is something called a sorting system, where the picker stands still and the products are brought to him to pick. And lastly, we have something called the box picking, which is usually a box is a picker stands in front of a shelf. A box is brought in front of them, usually by a conveyor belt, and on that they have what they need to pick from their own shelf. So they stand there, they pick everything that's against their own shelf, Yeah, they say, okay, I've completed it, and then the box is then sent to another picker, who then says, oh, okay, in front of my zone for this box, I need to pick something else. Yeah, so this is so each picker is actually in charge of a particular zone. It's like zone picking, except the picker doesn't have to move. The box actually moves with the picker, and once it's finished, the box will be full for your order, and then it's ready for packing. Before we go into SAP, which is actually the easy part, let's have a look at some of the concepts that you will see in the warehouse or so forth for picking. The first is something called picking strategy. So let me put that in, strategy, which in short is the path in which you do your picking, i.e. how do you go from one bin to another in the most efficient way to do your picking. So for example, you could have a picking method where you move from bin A, and after you finish picking from bin A, you would go to bin B, and then you would then go to, let's say, bin C, so you have to go backwards again, and then you go to bin D, which is alphabetically pretty simple. Yeah, but as you can see, it may not be the most efficient way to do your picking. You could do picking from bin A